that a lot of Infinite Warfare's foundation came from the team wanting to expand upon the space sections of COD Ghosts, and you can totally see it. You know what's easy to do? Hate on Infinite Warfare. I've done it multiple times in the past, and it was a huge misstep in terms of what people wanted from Call of Duty at that time. Now, I've said before, I think the game is okay on its own, but when compared to other COD titles, it's a mess. What is up, everybody? Chaos here. Welcome to the channel. Now, that's not to say that it didn't actually do certain elements very well, and other COD developers shouldn't dismiss it so easily. So for today, I want to take a look back at Infinite Warfare and check out some things that I think the game actually knocked out of the park. Things that the game got right. You guys, let me know your thoughts of Infinite Warfare in the comment section. Drop a like, and here we go. As we go through this list, you're probably gonna get a little more fonder of this game. I have. And we're gonna start things off with mission teams. That's right, the mission team system. It doesn't get any appreciation, and it should. It was basically factions in multiplayer with a handful to choose from. After you picked a team, you would get a series of challenges that would rotate every single match, and the rewards for those challenges would be progression through a tier of team-specific rewards like XP and unique gun variants. Now, each mission team also had a different playstyle, and you could swap between them at any given time. It added a ton of replay value to the progression system, and it gave you something new to do every single game and specific rewards to grind for. Now, I'm honestly surprised that mission teams never made a comeback because this was a great feature. I don't think anybody would really argue with it. Next up is zombies. Infinite Warfare, well, it was the first time Infinity Ward took a crack at zombies. Up until this point, they stuck with Spec Ops for their third mode, and in Ghost, they tried Extinction, but with Infinite Warfare, they decided to give zombies a try, and you know what? They did a great job. Infinite Warfare zombie mode was very cheesy and over the top, taking every single opportunity it could to get spoof retro sci-fi, horror, monster movies, all that good stuff in it. You could tell the devs were having a blast designing this mode. Sure, it wasn't very serious, but come on, zombies hasn't really been serious since Black Ops 2, and if you ask me, if you're gonna do a zombie game without a serious tone, you might as well go all in with the campiness. Infinite Warfare Zombies was a pretty big hit for those who played it, and it was a good example of how to do an absurd premise the right way. Just have fun with it. I feel if they would have tried to have copied Treyarch Zombies, they would have failed. But doing the whimsical version they did, it was a ton of fun. Now, due to Infinite Warfare not getting a whole lot of attention from the multiplayer community, not very many people actually appreciate the map design. Now, I'm not saying IW had all-around amazing map design, but what I am saying today is that it was much more consistent and overall good than other recent COD games. Now, I'm sure you've noticed, COD games now seem to have a handful of good maps, if that, and then a handful, if that, of decent ones, and then 3 to 4 really, really bad ones that everybody avoids. But Infinite Warfare's selection was much better than other CODs around it. The game launched with 12 maps, plus Terminal as a bonus 13, and out of those 12, there was really only 1 or 2 bad ones. The rest were either good or perfectly passable. I know, some of them may have blended together because of the somewhat bland art style, but looking back over Infinite Warfare's maps, there weren't very many bad ones. In fact, there were quite a few good standouts, like Genesis, Throwback, Frontier, and Frost. Infinite Warfare's map selection was good. It managed to, it used the 3-lane design, we know that, but it was still open and unique enough for you to not feel forced into those given lanes, which is what we all want from COD maps. This next one's a given, but I have to put it on here. The campaign. Everybody knows the Infinite Warfare campaign was stellar. Even people who hated the multiplayer with every fiber of their being will admit, campaign was pretty sick. It took a pretty interesting approach to COD storytelling by having you be an established but vulnerable leader as opposed to the untouchable new guy like in other CODs, and that gave the story a brand new dynamic. Landscapes, gorgeous. Set pieces, awesome. And the writing was excellent. I got a chance to actually go meet the writer and the actors, and they put so much time into this. They really did. They stated in interviews that a lot of Infinite Warfare's foundation came from the team wanting to expand upon the space sections of COD Ghosts, and you can totally see it. If you for some chance never played the IW campaign, I highly recommend it. It is one of the best COD campaigns of the 8th console generation. It truly is. At number 6, passive specialist abilities. Now, specialists were introduced in Black Ops 3. It was a way to shake up the formula, if you will. Infinite Warfare brought this system back, but they altered it a little bit, and they made the experience more customizable. In Black Ops 3, specialists had one big super weapon or special ability that would charge, but in Infinite Warfare, the specialists had a big super weapon, but they also had a passive ability. So instead of just choosing the one big weapon, you also had like 3 passive abilities that you could choose from, which made for much more customizable systems that actually added a ton of depth to the multiplayer. Now, certain passive traits worked very, very well with certain playstyles, while others suffered, so you had to pick wisely and experiment so you could have the best possible setup. But it was good. At number 5, everybody loves free stuff. Following Black Ops 3, COD players were fed up with how much Activision was throwing microtransactions at our face. People were also especially annoyed with the whole variant system in Infinite Warfare, and while yes, you could technically just grind for the stuff you wanted without spending any real money, it was still needlessly complicated and greedy. But with all that being said, IW gave away a lot of free stuff, more than any other COD game at the time, and it's still up there in terms of free post-launch content. The game would give daily login rewards to anybody who played the game, and these included both in-game currency and even supply drops. Then, around every major holiday, Infinity Ward gave away a ton of weapon variants and cosmetic items to anybody who logged in during that time period. Now, IW had a ton of free post-launch content, most of which had been locked behind supply drops if it had been in Black Ops 3 or Advanced Warfare. So it was a nice change of pace. At number 4, custom kill streaks. Now, customizable kill streaks have only appeared in 2 Call of Duty games, Advanced Warfare and Infinite Warfare. Now, in AW, they were pretty elaborate, whereas in Infinite Warfare, they were simplified, dumbed down quite a bit to a variant system, but they were still fun to mess with. Like in Advanced Warfare, Infinite Warfare allowed you to change certain traits of your kill streaks and alter the cost to get them, making for a deeply customizable game that totally catered to pretty much any kind of playstyle as long as you were willing to put in the time for experimentation. You could increase your UAV's airtime at the cost of decreased health. You could increase the amount of Scorchers you called in at the cost of a higher cost. The list goes on and on. Custom kill streaks were a really cool element of Call of Duty that I'm actually a little shocked we haven't seen more of in the past years, but I have a feeling we're going to see them make a resurgence in the coming years. Game modes. Infinite Warfare was chocked full of game modes, and it's kind of sad that this used to be an expected thing in COD games, but now we're lucky if we get half of the game modes that we would have gotten in a game like Modern Warfare 2 or Black Ops 1. Compared to the other 8th gen COD games, Infinite Warfare was jam-packed with game modes, and it helped with the variety. There were a dozen core modes, I think, a big chunk of hardcore modes, and then you had competitive and party modes on top of all that. And then later, when the game became less populated, Infinity Ward started introducing playlists of multiple modes bunched together, like deathmatch modes, objective modes, so on and so forth. They had a ton of game modes, way more than Black Ops 4 and World War II, and this should be commended. Now all they need to do is add player counts back so all these game modes can actually shine. At number 2, the skill ceiling. Now, people have been getting on COD's case in recent years due to the developers consistently or constantly making the game easier and easier for new players through things like skill-based matchmaking, powerful LMGs, incentives for camping. You guys know what I'm talking about. But if you spend any time on IW, you know this was not a noob-friendly game, and that was part of the appeal for a lot of people. Infinite Warfare had a very high skill ceiling thanks to the movement system, the specialists, and the map design. Black Ops 3 had that same movement system, but it was significantly slower paced as a game due to the larger, more open map design. IW, on the other hand, much faster pace, which really forced you to get good with the movement if you wanted to be consistent. And ironically enough, this was part of what pushed a lot of people away from the game altogether, because as you probably know, advanced movement wasn't super popular in the COD community, so when IW rewarded you so much for using it, well, that pissed some people off, and I get that. But I'm putting it as a positive because COD games recently have seemingly forgotten about all the skill gaps and the skill ceilings, whereas Infinite Warfare totally embraced them, and I think it's worth noting. And finally, the end of our video today. Self-awareness. Call of Duty games often have a bit of a tone problem. They want to be these gritty military action games, but also include over-the-top weaponry and technology that just undermines the seriousness that they were going for. Then, you hop into multiplayer, and everybody's running around jump-shotting, quick-scoping. It makes the whole thing feel kind of silly. Infinite Warfare's answer to this was very similar to Advanced Warfare's answer. Just embrace the silliness. AW and IW are both very self-aware games, and it totally complements the gameplay. The developers knew how absurd the premise was, and they knew it would be next to impossible to actually take seriously, so why try? Why not just go all in with the absurdity and have a good time? And I think Infinite Warfare totally embraced the silliness, and they gave us things like random gestures, crazy emotes for the Winter Circle, funny announcer packs, and even gesture warfare, which is one of the most weirdly awkward fun game modes in COD history. They knew that it was a wacky sci-fi shooter that people hated. Nobody was going to take it serious anyway, so IW just had fun with it, and I think the game industry actually needs more of that nowadays. There you have it. Those are some arguments in the corner of Infinite Warfare on what they got right. You guys let me know where you agree or disagree. I'm sure there's going to be stuff on here that you disagree with. And remember, if you get anything from G2A.com, use promo code CHAOS to get some actual cash back. Link is at the top of the description. Go save some money.